Well, it's time to come up with some sort of a kitchen. My goals are a sink to wash dishes, a microwave, enough counter space to prepare a meal, hopefully an apartment-sized stove. But we have a couple challenges to overcome due to the shape of the Gothic arch. This curve that I love so much on the arch presents a challenge in that cabinets are normally 2 feet deep, and I can't butt them right up against the wall, or I can, but will leave an enormous gap at the base of the cabinet. So I'm working in a very tiny space. This is a small cabin. In order to accommodate the curve here, I'm going to shrink the width of the counter to maybe as small as 20 inches, maybe 22, maybe I can get away with that. Well, what's the big deal? Well, the kitchen sink and the faucet are a big deal, the way the faucet comes up in the back of the sink. And I think I have the answer. I found a deal. This is a bar sink. It was on clearance for $52. And I got a faucet that will fit in the hole. Well, one way we could save space width-wise would be to install this sideways, this way, and put the faucet up at this end up here. I picked up a faucet and soap dispenser to fill those 2 holes. I used this scrap of OSB to give me an idea where that base has got to come out to. See that gap back there? Alright, and then I just used some scrap drywall tape I had kicking around. And I've laid out actual dimensions. The smallest square closest to us is the little stove. I think I'm going to put the sink a little off-center. I haven't cleared it with the wife yet. And then I've marked out some approximate sizes for my future cabinets. We temporarily put our cabinet building on hold. Kim and I found some cabinets that might be worth just buying. So in the meantime, we have a new project. It's right behind me, right there. Making a raised bed. My wife's got plants growing, and we're trying to utilize the natural landscape. So we're laying out our raised bed. Yeah, it's pressure treated. No, it's not harmful. They stopped making wood with arsenic 15 years ago. So we use stakes, and then we're going to kind of fill in the gaps, and then we'll use the old backhoe, fill it in with some dirt. Well, we're all done, and we're ready for our dirt. Here's our internal bracing to keep it from bowing in or out through the years and as we put the loam in. Just need a little bit more potting soil, topsoil, and we'll have a garden. So I was going to build kitchen cabinets, and I was going to be super cheap and thrifty. I was going to buy a couple sheets of birch or maple plywood and do kind of poor man's cabinets. And then I came across these cabinets right downtown for a fraction of what the big box stores sell. Now here's what I brought home for our kitchen. This should do about the whole thing. These were bought locally, downtown. These were a fraction, like less than half of Lowe's or Home Cheapo. They are solid maple and beautiful maple or birch plywood. And we started taking them apart so we can polyurethane them. They were $100 for that big one. The small one was around 60 some odd. I bought those and the countertops for right about 500 bucks, all told, everything for the kitchen. I finished urethaning the cabinets, and today I'm doing a little surgery. I need these to fit the slope of the wall, so I've shored up the drawer slides, and I'm trimming the back of the cabinet. This is the chunk I've taken off so far. So I'm just going to finish up here and reinforce it and then check my fit. Ever get really mad at yourself? Well, I'm out here cutting my countertop. I'm going to show you what I did with the cabinet so far. I cut it upside down and backwards. Oh, look how nice it looks. Got it cut from the wrong side. So, I barely had enough before. I am going to monkey around and see if I can make do. Here's the cabinets in. I had to make these little corner pieces right here on each corner to give me room for my drawers, and still it's going to be tight for the pull. That's maybe another boo-boo on my behalf, but there they are. I'm going to go see if I can make do on this countertop fiasco. To prevent me from throwing this thing away here, I used a scrap block to reattach the piece I cut off, and I cut the correct 45. Now I'm going to make some little clamping blocks to attach, and then I'll get on to working on my miter joint here. Here's my little clamping blocks that will suck that crack together, hopefully. I'm going to loosen up these screws up top on this block here, and then we'll add some glue to the joint, suck it together, and then hopefully reinforce it, and hopefully it will look good on top. Maybe that'll give you an idea for a patch you have to do. So these blocks here were just to pull it together, and then these cleats all went on with wood glue on the back, and once they dry, that thing will be pretty darn strong. Well, here's what it looks like now. Didn't come out half bad. You can still make out the seam a little bit, but remember, I freehanded that with a skill saw. So now I got left is this edge here, and we'll be done with the counter. Well, except for the sink. Alright, we're all done, pretty much. At least with the seams, anyway. This one came out the nicest, I think. Might have to rig up something for a backsplash. But that is a $500 kitchen. After a couple of minor setbacks, like cutting the counter the wrong way and a couple trips to the hardware store, I finally got the sink in and the counter's all done. Have a look. Oh, there's our little kitchen. The sink in. Now, because I had to shrink the countertop because of the way the walls curve in, I found this little bar sink on clearance for 50 bucks, and I mounted it sideways so I could, clear the wall. And I think it works pretty good. I told you once before I always have more than one iron in the fire. I added a upper cabinet there over the refrigerator. But what I'm working on right now is another water source. We have the IBC tote, and we're pumping that in the house, and that's okay. But my wife's been gardening, and the gardening's been doing good, and gardens need water. Here's a little garden, and boy, it's going good. We had to put up a little fence to keep our friendly neighborhood deer out. It turns out there's a spring out in the woods off our property line, and my neighbor was kind enough to agree to let us tap into the little spring, just a trickle. So let me show you what we're up to. We've got a little path here in the woods, And we've been hand digging this little spring. It's kind of a mess looking. This was just a muddy spot in the woods, but we've dug it down. Actually, the girls did 99% of the digging. And I got nice clean spring water, and one of the evidences I'm told that it's good water is this guy. We've got salamanders in there. So I've got to finish digging that out, and then we're going to tap it, and then we're going to send it down through the woods and gravity feed a tank. So I went and looked at what some of my new friends down here have done with their springs to get an idea. So I'm a Yankee. If you ask me to dig a well in New Hampshire, no problem. Down here things are different. So I'll show you what I come up with. I think it's going to work well. I picked up a roll of black pipe. This is 1 inch, probably overkill. And I need an end to drop into the spring. So what I did is I got a piece of this perforated pipe. It's got these nice little handy slits in there. Put a couple of caps on it and a fitting. We're going to lay that in the spring with a few bags of rocks and gravity feed it down through the woods. I took my old laser transit, and with the help of my wife, we shot some grades in the woods and mapped out a course for that pipe. We can run that downhill and over to a reservoir. My spare IBC tote, we use this to pick up water so we can fill the other one. I get these for about 50 bucks from an organic granola company. Now, I mentioned irons, plural. Well, you check out behind me a little bit, you might see some of the other things we got done. We got the field hayed. We got 35 nice heavy round bales of hay out of here. While my sweetheart is down there finishing out, digging out the spring, I've cut off the bottom of a 55-gallon food grade barrel, which we're going to insert in there, run the line out of it, and this will give us our access point to the spring and keep debris out. Here's my sweetheart. She dresses up to clean out springs. And this is what we got. She's been rounding it out to fit our reservoir. It's looking pretty good. And you can see the water coming in. A little cloudy now from digging. Here's our trial fit. We've got to take a little bit more out on the right and get that thing down in there. Coming to phase 2. We got the hole where we want it. I have my cover set up. And now we're running the line and trenching and working our way through the woods. It's going to be a pretty good run. 3/4 the length of a football field, I think. My wife's cutting away through the jungle, following our marks. All right.
I don't even know.
This is Ben. Ben's helped me with the spring.
Hello.
Right, Ben?
Yes.
All right. So Kim and I got the pipe buried, and our reservoir's in there, and we've covered it with hay, and it's full of crushed rock.
Will this work on?
And now we're filling it back in, and then hopefully that line way down there, we'll follow that and see if water's coming out the other end.
I like it. I'm having fun.
These are my helpers.
Working is always fun.
Yeah. Keep working, because everybody on YouTube is going to see you.
That's scary.
It was scary.
Yeah, seeing you in the middle of nowhere. That's going to be a good idea.
I worked until dark last night, finishing up our spring connection. And we had the water going pretty good for a little bit, and then all of a sudden it stopped. Well, it turned out I created a vacuum, like closing off the end up here. Let me show you. Here's the site of all the excitement and activity yesterday and past week or so. I had to add a snorkel because it got airbound. This hose pipe goes on for quite a ways. That's one of my benchmarks when we were shooting the grade with the Transit. I got 300 feet of pipe laying here. And here's the end. And there she is a-running. Running a little test here to check our gallons per minute, or lack thereof. And while I'm waiting, I'll show you, I spent the better part of a day hacking through the underbrush here, making a little path through all these thorns to where the tank is going to sit. Well, that ended up being a gallon every 2 minutes, every minute and 52 seconds. Nice clear water. I did already go ahead and taste it. And I've made a spot for a cistern. And I got that finished up today. Right there. Once I get my IBC tote located down the bottom of the hill there and install the pump, we'll be essentially, finally, self-sufficient on this little piece of land we've got. I've got to end the video for now. It's probably gotten a little bit too long, so I'll catch you next time. I hope some of this stuff is helpful or at least mildly entertaining. See ya.